My husband lost the wedding game and had to feed Claire wine, mouth to mouth, at the wedding reception. Claire, flushed with excitement, later pulled out $200,000 in cash gifts, hugging Mason as tears filled her eyes. "If Audrey weren't here, would you marry me instead?" she asked softly. Mason's answer came, without hesitation. "I would." The room went silent. Every gaze turned toward me, laced with mockery and curiosity. I didn't flinch. I was the first to clap. "Congratulations to the happy couple," I said with a calm smile. "May you be blessed with many children." Mason and I had loved each other for 8 years before finally marrying on National Day. That morning, I waited patiently in my bridal suite, dressed in my scarlet wedding gown, expecting him to arrive any moment. Instead, the noise of cheering drifted in from outside. Curious, I peeked out only to see Mason with his childhood friend Claire. They had just lost a dare. Mason poured wine into his mouth, leaned forward, and pressed his lips against hers. Their kiss lingered, tongues brushing, collars dampened, 10 full seconds before they finally parted. Claire's lips were swollen, her cheeks burning red. And yet, even then, she clung to his waist, looking at me directly. No shame, only provocation. She chuckled. "Don't be upset. I was just helping test out the game." I wanted to demand what kind of game required feeding wine to another woman's husband. But instead, I bit my tongue. To my own surprise, I wasn't furious. I almost felt relieved. My best friend wasn't as composed. She was already rolling up her sleeves, ready to throw a punch. Mason quickly stepped between them, his glare fixed on me. "If your friend so much as touches Claire, Audrey, this wedding is over." I tugged my friend back, gesturing for them to keep playing. Mason misread my silence as anger. "Stop being jealous for once. I've told you 100 times. Claire is like a sister to me." I smiled lazily. "I'm not angry. You two go ahead with your game. We'll wait inside." Taking me at my word, he returned to the group and resumed truth or dare. Soon he lost again. Claire seized her chance. With a tender look, she asked, "If Audrey weren't around, would you marry me?" From behind her chair, she pulled out a duffel bag stuffed with cash. "There's $200,000 here. Not a dowry, just a gift." Gasps filled the room. Mason froze for a moment, then gave a small, emotional nod. "I would." All eyes snapped back to me. I rose, applauding lightly. "Congratulations to the two of you. May you have a large, happy family." People thought I was seething, but I meant every word. Mason's expression darkened. "Audrey, how many times do I need to explain? It's just a stupid game. Why are you acting crazy? This is our wedding day. Are you trying to ruin it?" His words almost made me laugh. "Who's really the one trying to ruin the wedding here?" I asked quietly. He scowled. "We're not even officially married yet, and already you're suffocating me with your jealousy. I can't stand being controlled like this. Fix that bad habit right now." With that, he slammed the door in my face. "Stay in here with your petty jealousy," he snapped. "We can't enjoy ourselves with you around." Claire clung smugly to his arm. "Don't worry, Audrey. We'll call you when the game's finished." So, on my wedding day, my husband shut me away while he flirted openly with another woman, his so-called sister, before a crowd of guests. They all whispered and gossiped, clutching their gift envelopes, while I stood there looking like a fool. And yet, no one seemed shocked. To them, Mason and Claire's closeness was normal. The only ridiculous one in the room was me. In the past, I would have exploded, turned the whole reception upside down. Mason would have accused me of being insecure, jealous, dirty-minded. He would have ignored me for days, then flaunted Claire just to provoke me. Eventually, I'd crumble, begging for forgiveness, admitting I was unreasonable, promising to trust him. Years of manipulation had reduced me to someone who second-guessed her own sanity. Even on my wedding day, I caught myself wondering, was I really overreacting? But deep down, I knew the truth. It wasn't me who was wrong. It was them. The door slammed shut, cutting me off from the sight of them. Only the sound of laughter and raucous chatter from outside filtered through. I leaned against the window, gazing at the noisy crowd below. My friends hovered behind me, their anger simmering. "This is too much. Even if this wedding falls apart, so what?" one of them muttered. But when they caught sight of my calm expression, they fell silent. Everyone believed this marriage had been my desperate pursuit, that Mason had reluctantly given in. But the truth was, not long ago, he had been the one to propose. And I, Foolishly, thought that after 8 long years, my patience had finally paid off, that I was finally getting my happy ending. Instead, today's spectacle felt like ice water splashed over my dreams. Sophie, my childhood friend and my most loyal defender, could hardly contain her fury. "You've been humiliated like this, and you still want to marry him?" I looked at her steadily. "Then I won't." With that, I began removing the gold hairpins and jewelry from my hair. She gasped and grabbed my hands. "Are you insane?" But after studying my calm face, her anger softened into helplessness. "Forget it. If this is what you want, maybe after the wedding, he'll finally settle down." Sophie had seen everything, from the very beginning of my relationship with Mason to now. Back in college, Mason was the golden boy, handsome, admired by everyone. And me? I was the awkward girl with glasses, weighed down by depression and barely surviving on part-time jobs. After my father died the summer I finished high school, my mother remarried and left me behind with only $200, as if cutting ties completely. Even though I managed to get into a top university, I couldn't afford tuition or living costs. Exhaustion and hopelessness shadowed me constantly. I was bullied, ignored, and pushed to the margins. My only friend was Sophie, and many times I found myself standing on rooftops, thinking about ending it all. It was Mason who found me then, who sat by my side with a slice of cake, who listened to music with me, who gave me space to vent. He stayed when I couldn't afford meals, walked beside me when the weight of life threatened to crush me, and even held my hand in public when others mocked me. At a class gathering once, a jealous girl dared me to kiss him in front of everyone. I froze, humiliated. But Mason simply smiled at me and said, "It's fine. Kiss me. I like you too." That moment felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. From then on, we were inseparable. Though no one else believed in us, many sneered, calling me unworthy, saying Mason was like a flower growing out of manure. I clung to him with everything I had. My love turned into devotion, and my devotion into fear. Fear that one day he would tire of me, or that someone else would take him away. So I gave him everything, hoping he would never leave. He gave me warmth in return, security, love, or at least something that looked like it. But when Claire returned from abroad, everything changed. Mason's patience with me wore thin, while his closeness with her grew impossible to ignore. They had long crossed the line between just friends, and yet I clung on, convincing myself he would come back to me if I simply endured. I kept telling myself, people aren't made of stone. One day, he'd remember how much I loved him. But tonight, I felt nothing but cold. I realized I no longer had the strength or the desire to warm him. "Maybe you're right," I murmured to Sophie before walking out of the room. Outside, Mason was holding Claire while the guests cheered around them. When she spotted me, she snuggled closer into his arms, feigning shyness. Mason's face darkened instantly. "Who told you to come out?" His voice was sharp with anger, as though I had ruined something. I stood silently, unmoving. Even now, he truly believed he had done nothing wrong. My gaze on him was flat, indifferent. "If this is so difficult for you, we can always choose another day to marry." The words barely left my lips before Mason seized my wrist, his grip tight and punishing. "So that's it? You don't want to marry me? If you want to call it off, just say it. Who do you think you're showing off to with this attitude?" His glare burned with fury, but beneath it was something worse, the certainty that I was the problem. He still thought everything was my fault. I stood firm and said coldly, "Hasn't it always been your decision whether we marry or not?" "You..." Mason was left speechless, my words hitting harder than he expected. For someone obsessed with his reputation, the fact that he hadn't stormed out already was surprising. Just as I thought he might call the whole thing off, he spoke. "Of course, we're getting married." The words stunned me for a moment, until he destroyed whatever hope lingered. "But I want Claire by my side." He reached for her hand without hesitation. Claire's face bloomed with delight, her cheeks flushing pink. To anyone watching, it looked as if they were the bride and groom. As they walked ahead, I felt the sting of countless stares, mockery, disdain, thinly veiled glee. Should I give them the tantrum they're waiting for? I thought, a bitter smile curling on my lips. Instead, I simply followed. When I reached for the handle of a lead car, Claire poked her head out, her smile dripping with mockery. "Audrey, Mason wants me beside him for the most important moments of his life. Is that all right with you? You two getting married?" I almost snapped back, but Mason's indifferent gaze stopped me cold. Swallowing my anger, I opened the passenger door without a word. If the groom doesn't care, why should I humiliate myself? I thought. Then, deliberately, I placed my bouquet in Claire's hands. In the rear-view mirror, Mason's eyes burned into me, brows furrowed with irritation. I closed my eyes, refusing to give him the reaction he wanted. Silence filled the car until we were nearly at the hotel. Finally, Mason exploded. "Audrey, what's your deal?" My eyes opened slowly. "What do you mean?" He snatched the bouquet from Claire's hands and tossed it onto the back seat, petals scattering. "I don't get what game you're playing. Who are you trying to impress with this act? Haven't I made myself clear? Claire is just a friend. I'm marrying you. What more do you want?" Claire chimed in sweetly, her tone pretending sympathy. "Audrey, don't take this the wrong way. As women, we should be generous. Sure, I like Mason, but you're the one marrying him. Isn't a wedding supposed to be happy? Reception games are just fun. There'll be more kissing and dares later. You're not really going to stop us, are you?" I opened my eyes fully, giving a calm nod.
Fine.
"When it's time for the games, I'll leave with everyone else. You two can do whatever you want." Claire's smile tightened. She wanted Mason for herself. Her constant provocations were proof. She'd poke and prod, then play the victim when I snapped, painting me as the jealous villain. And Mason always sided with her. I realized then how foolish I'd been, fighting like some desperate concubine in an ancient palace drama. Claire wasn't finished. She sneered, her words dripping with contempt. "Your mind is filthy as ever. Mason and I are innocent, but you twist it into something else. Do you really want to humiliate your groom on his wedding day?" I shot her a frosty glare. "And what about the woman shamelessly inserting herself between us? Does she have any right to speak?" It wasn't jealousy that made me lash out. I was tired of being everyone's doormat. Mason, of course, took it differently. His sigh was full of exasperation. "Audrey, when will you grow up? If I didn't love you, would I be marrying you?" Before, I would have fought back, told him marriage doesn't equal love, exposed Claire as the snake she was. But not anymore. I simply looked straight ahead, silent. That silence drove him mad. His voice rose to a furious shout. "Audrey, what does your silence mean? Do you think I'm wrong?" I let out a sharp, humorless laugh, pretending to go along. "How could you possibly be wrong? I'm the one who misjudged you." It was my usual reply, but this time my voice carried an edge, mockery layered beneath forced calm. Maybe I was imagining things, but for the briefest moment, I caught a flicker of panic in Mason's eyes. It vanished so quickly I almost doubted I'd seen it. Still, knowing his arrogance, he would never admit to being unsettled. Thinking I was still the timid girl he could toy with, he said smugly, "I'll take you inside." His words were heavy with false generosity. By the time we reached the main hall, the guests, relatives, and friends were already gathered. Mason strode ahead of me, arm linked tightly with Claire's. The usher glanced at her and said, "The bride should stay apart from the groom for now." Claire's proud eyes flicked toward me, but she offered no clarification. I was about to walk away with a bitter smile when Mason suddenly caught my wrist and snapped. "What are you talking about? She's my wife." It was the first time he had ever called me that aloud. For a moment, I felt a strange warmth at him standing up for me, until he released my hand just as quickly, as though my touch had burned him. The ceremony went on as planned. When it came time for the bouquet toss, Mason said nothing, simply bypassing me and placing the flowers into Claire's hands. His eyes glistened faintly red. "I hope you'll find happiness," he murmured. Claire clutched his arm, tears brimming. "Mason, you'll soon belong to someone else. As your friend, could you give me one last kiss?" My breath caught. The audacity stunned me. What unsettled me more, however, was the crowd cheering them on. Our parents weren't here. Mason hadn't wanted a formal ceremony. He insisted inviting them would make it feel like a charade. Most of the guests were his friends. I had barely a handful of my own. I had pleaded for a proper wedding, something that showed respect to both families. Instead, he accused me of being difficult, even suggesting I call it off if I wasn't satisfied. Now his friends were chanting, "Kiss, kiss." Their voices filled the room, urging the scene forward. The host froze, clearly unprepared for such a spectacle. Mason and Claire pressed close, chests touching, noses nearly brushing, as if they belonged to each other. Claire threw me a triumphant look. Mason held the moment for 10 long seconds before pulling back. Humiliation washed over me. At my own wedding, no less. Any other woman might have slapped them both, but I stood perfectly still, face calm, body rigid. Was I not a woman? Of course I was. I just no longer loved Mason. But his friends weren't finished. Grayson, the loudest of them all, jeered. Audrey, how many times do I have to say this? Mason and Claire are just friends. Friends hug, friends kiss, it's normal. Why are you always so jealous? Honestly, we pity Mason. Living with such a controlling woman must be suffocating. If it were me, I wouldn't tolerate it. This wedding shouldn't even be happening. They twisted the truth until I was the villain, as always. I tilted my head, smiling faintly. So, Grayson, does that mean you and I are friends too? He faltered, then forced a grin. Of course. Mason's my brother, and you're about to be his wife. I already see you as family. Mason looked at him with a warmth that reeked of brotherhood. I almost laughed. Then, without warning, I leaned toward Grayson. His eyes widened in shock as I rose on tiptoe and pressed my lips against his. Their kiss had lasted 10 seconds. Mine stretched beyond 30. I kissed him until he nearly gasped for air. When he finally pushed me away, the room had fallen into stunned silence. No one had imagined that I, the woman so devoted to Mason, would dare to do something so reckless in front of everyone. The first voice broke the silence with a shout. Audrey, that's cheating. How could you betray Mason like this? Yeah, and on your wedding day? Are you insane? I wiped my lips and met their accusing eyes. Oh, so now kissing counts as cheating? That's funny. I thought none of you believed that. Gasps echoed. Grayson just stared at me, utterly shaken. I gave Grayson a warm smile. Aren't we just friends? What's the rush? There's nothing between us. Mason won't mind, right? I turned toward Mason. His face had gone pale, tension clear in the lines around his mouth. Audrey, are you out of your mind? He snapped. I met his glare with cool indifference. Did I do something wrong? He jabbed a finger at me, then at Grayson, grinding his teeth. What the hell was that supposed to be? We're just friends, I replied evenly. No need to let your thoughts wander. I repeated his own logic back at him. His fury deepened. So that's it? You kissed Grayson just to hurt me? To get even with me? The outrage in his voice made it sound as though I had committed some unspeakable crime, when all I had done was follow the rules he himself had set. I don't get it, I said flatly. You're the one who insisted hugs and kisses between friends mean nothing. I simply followed your reasoning. Why are you so angry now? Because it's different, one of his friends shouted. Mason and Claire grew up together. That's not the same thing at all. I laughed coldly. Different?
How?
Cheating is still cheating. So when she does it, it's fine. But if I do the same, I'm condemned. Mason opened his mouth to fight back, but couldn't form a coherent defense. All he clung to was his wounded pride. I thought you loved me most of all, he said bitterly. I never expected you'd stoop this low. You've disappointed me beyond words. He grabbed Claire's hand and pulled her toward the door. My body felt numb, hollow, but I didn't speak. He probably thought I would apologize, beg him to stay like I used to. Instead, he turned back, his voice sharp. After what you did at our wedding, I could never forgive you. I blinked, taken aback. What? Misinterpreting my surprise, he grew even more enraged. I'm not coming home tonight. Claire and I are going to get our marriage license. For the first time, I saw fear flash in his eyes. Genuine fear, not the fleeting kind from earlier. His lips trembled slightly, but still, he wouldn't yield. Without a shred of compromise, he dragged Claire away. She glanced back, smirking, gripping his hand tightly as if declaring her victory. I almost laughed. Let them go. With the main actors gone, the show was over. The guests scattered soon after. Just like that, my wedding ended in ruins. I had planned everything. Flights to Tanaxis, a honeymoon that swallowed half my savings. All of it wasted. That night, I canceled the reservations, the trip, even my vacation days. Tomorrow, I would return to work as if none of it had happened. Later, I heard footsteps. Mason had come home, but I had no desire to see him. That in itself was strange. Before, I would have rushed out like a servant, asking if he was tired, hungry, or if he needed soup to sober up. Now, I stayed in bed, perfectly awake, unwilling to move. For the first time, I slept through the night without him. When I opened my eyes the next morning, Mason was slumped in a chair by the bed, looking like he had aged a decade overnight. "Why didn't you sleep properly?" I asked, frowning, before getting up to wash. He followed me, then suddenly wrapped his arms around me from behind. "I didn't marry Claire," he whispered. I froze mid-motion. Was he trying to reconcile? But then came the blow. "Tomorrow night, I'm holding a gathering. You'll apologize to Grayson and the others. Claire will be there too." The warmth that had flickered in my chest instantly turned to ice. "So, you think I was wrong yesterday?" His tone hardened. "Wasn't it? You ruined the whole ceremony. That was unacceptable." I gave a bitter laugh. Ruined it? Was I supposed to stand by and watch my husband cling to another woman at our wedding? Mason's face twisted with disbelief. "When did you become so unreasonable? Are you seriously saying none of this was your fault?" I wanted to argue, but what was the point? If conversation could save us, it would have by now. "Cancel the gathering," I said flatly. "I won't go." Defiance after defiance, he finally lost control. "Don't push me, Audrey. I've already offered you an out, and you still won't take it?" The way he looked at me, you'd think I was the one being irrational. "I don't need your out, Mason," I said quietly. "Keep it for yourself. I'm your partner, not your slave." That was all. From the moment he demanded I apologize, I knew there was no hope left. His eyes reddened, his voice cracking with rage. "So, you don't love me anymore?" I couldn't understand what love had to do with submission. But I nodded honestly. "It seems I don't love you as much anymore." He stared at me as if I had turned into a stranger, clutching my shoulders like he'd seen a ghost. "Audrey, you've lost your mind." As he stormed out, his figure vanishing into the distance, I felt nothing but relief. After that day, Mason stopped coming home altogether. I didn't bother asking where he went. My days settled into a quiet rhythm, finishing work on time, eating on schedule, sleeping early. Slowly, the dark circles that had haunted me for years faded away. One afternoon, while scrolling through my phone, a notification popped up. It was a message from Mason. He had sent me a beach photo, shirtless, flaunting his sculpted abs. Claire's hand was visible in the frame, smearing sunscreen across the skin. There was no caption, but the intimacy spoke for itself. Out of curiosity, I checked Claire's social media. She had posted another picture, her fingers intertwined with Mason's. The caption read, "Treasure the one right in front of you." Her audacity no longer shocked me. The old me would have spiraled, calling Mason endlessly, maybe even racing out to confront them in person, breaking down in tears and rage. But this time, I simply tapped like on both their posts. Was I hurt? Of course. After years of giving Mason my everything, watching him flirt so openly with another woman still stung. But hadn't it always been this way? I had grown numb to it, almost immune. So I went on with my life, throwing myself into work. My efforts paid off. I was entrusted with a new project, and my future looked promising. That evening, I stayed late at the office. By the time I left, it was past 10. To my surprise, Mason's car was waiting outside. It was the first big thing we'd bought together after graduating, though these days, it was Claire who drove it more often than he did. The passenger window slid down, revealing Mason's familiar face. "Get in," he said. "I'll take you home." A moment later, the driver's side window lowered, and Claire leaned out with a bright smile. "Audrey, we came to pick you up." The two of them looked every bit the couple, while I was reduced to the role of an acquaintance being offered a ride. The sight made my stomach turn. I pivoted back toward the office. Mason jumped out and caught my arm, irritation in his voice. "How long are you going to keep acting like this?" I faced him calmly. "I'm not making a scene. You know me, when I lose it, I lash out at Claire, hit myself, demand answers through tears, even hurt myself. But look at me now, I'm not doing any of that." My voice cracked slightly. No matter how hot the summer got, I had never dared to wear short sleeves. My arms were covered with scars, silent reminders of how I had once punished myself for loving him too much. Every scar had been a confession. It's my fault, I'm not enough. But the pain had become unbearable. I couldn't keep living like that. Mason froze, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Why? Why aren't you breaking down anymore? Why aren't you hurting yourself?" "Because it's too painful," I whispered, closing my eyes. Then I turned and walked toward the office doors. "I still have work to finish. You two should go." He stood there in silence. I had already put some distance between us when his voice rang out behind me, harsh and desperate. Audrey, this is your last chance. If you turn back now, I'll pretend none of this ever happened. But if you take one more step, I swear I'll sleep with Claire. I paused for the briefest moment. Then I kept walking, steady and unflinching. Once you choose to move forward, there's no point in looking back. They drove off, leaving me behind. I buried myself in work until dawn, drowning in coffee, trying to numb both my body and my mind. Forgetting someone after years of obsession isn't something you can do overnight. As the first light crept across the horizon, I raised my head to watch the sunrise. Out of nowhere, I craved fondue. It struck me then, ever since being with Mason, I'd avoided foods he disliked. He lived on bland meals, always counting calories, and I followed suit. I cut out spice, sugar, and grease, reshaping myself into a shadow until I no longer knew who I was. Did I want him to notice my sacrifices? Of course I did. I wasn't a saint. I longed for him to see me, to value me, but he never did. To him, my devotion was just part of the background. Always there, never acknowledged. That night, he and Claire stayed at a hotel. She sent me a series of photos, flaunting them like trophies. In one, the frosted bathroom mirror reflected their tangled silhouettes. I glanced once before powering off my phone. It no longer mattered. He could do whatever he pleased. The next morning, after overeating from that strange craving, I skipped the cafeteria and stayed at my desk. I was just about to rest my eyes when Mason appeared. He stood beside me, pale and uneasy, clutching a thermos box. Last night, I wasn't with Claire, he said. I simply nodded. All right. Instead of relief, his expression darkened. You don't believe me? I sighed, exhaustion heavy in my voice. Does it really matter whether I believe you? You know the truth better than anyone. Besides, I tilted my phone, showing him the photos Claire had sent. Proof doesn't lie. His eyes reddened. Why do you always doubt me? I've told you 1,000 times, she's just a friend. Too tired to argue, I quietly deleted Claire's contact in front of him. I didn't need her in my life anymore. There. Happy? Now please, just go. I want to rest. Instead of leaving, Mason placed the thermos on my desk. Eat while it's still warm. I made it myself. I pushed it away. Take it back. I don't want it. He lifted the lid stubbornly, revealing plain chicken breast and broccoli. Even his finger was wrapped in a small bandage, apparently from cooking. But I only felt queasy. I said, take it away. His patience snapped. Audrey, what are you pretending for? I've done all this. What else do you want from me? A bitter laugh rose in my throat, but never escaped. So, this is your idea of compromise? Spend the night with her, then feed me boiled chicken the next morning. For the first time, I wondered if I had ever really known the man I'd loved so fiercely. Rubbing my burning eyes, I whispered, I'm tired. Please, just leave. Mason looked completely undone, his face ashen. You're not supposed to be like this, Audrey, he said, his voice trembling. You should eat the food I brought, smile, tell me how thoughtful I am. Then you'd walk me downstairs, buy me a little gift to thank me, and kiss my forehead before going back to work. He spoke as if he'd played out the scene in his head 100 times before. And he wasn't wrong. For years, whenever he gave me even a crumb of kindness, I would light up, bend over backwards, and worship him like a fool. But calling myself a fool didn't feel quite right, because I had loved him, truly. I had been willing to give him everything. I shook my head, my voice steady. Not anymore. It won't happen again. His composure cracked. Why? You loved me so much. Why won't you do this for me anymore? I sighed. You already know why. I used to love you, but now I don't. His face turned gray, like all the life had drained from him. No, you can't do this. You're supposed to love me. You can't leave me. He began to cry openly, as if his whole world had collapsed. Colleagues had started to gather at the door, watching the scene unfold. I escorted him downstairs, speaking quietly. Go home. Don't make a scene here. You care about appearances more than anything. But Mason blocked my path, desperate. Please don't leave me, Audrey. You still care about me, don't you? You still love me? I didn't answer. Instead, I took half a day off to drive him home. Inside, he sat on the couch, crying and apologizing. I went to the bedroom to pack my things. Better to rip the bandage off quickly. But he rushed in, frantic. You're abandoning me? Don't go. I was wrong. I was really wrong. He fell to his knees. The once proud man who had towered over me for years was now crumbling. But I felt nothing as I helped him back to his feet. We fight constantly, Mason. Do you really think this is normal? Let's stop torturing each other. You're handsome.
People want you.
You don't have to be this desperate. He just stared at me blankly, not hearing a word. No, he whispered. We've been together for 8 years. We're married. How can you heartlessly leave me? We're not married, I replied, my tone even. The wedding ended in chaos, remember? I'll leave the car and the house to you. I'm only taking what's mine. I packed one suitcase, nothing more. But he grabbed my hand and wouldn't let go. I don't care about any of that. I only want you. Audrey, don't leave me. I'll die without you. I pried his fingers off and walked toward the door without looking back. If you take one more step, I'll kill myself right here in front of you, he shouted. I turned to see him holding a knife to his own neck, his eyes wild. And in that moment, I remembered the girl I used to be, the girl who had wanted to jump off rooftops, the girl Mason had once saved. I set down my suitcase, walked up to him, and picked up a kitchen knife, pressing it against my own neck. Mason, I said softly, do you see now? We've only been torturing each other. Stop threatening me with your life. Don't make me lose all respect for you. His tears streamed down his face. You don't want me anymore. If you want to look down on me, then go ahead. I looked at him steadily, and then I slashed my own wrist. Blood spilled down my arm. Mason screamed, throwing his knife aside and lunging toward me. I dodged him and grabbed my phone to call 911. While we waited for help, he tried to come close again and again, but I pushed him away every time. Mason, do you remember? I said weakly. Back in college, I wanted to end my life so many times, and you saved me. But now,
I don't want to die anymore. I'm sorry.
I owe you a life. Consider it repaid. Mason sobbed uncontrollably, broken. Even as they loaded me into the ambulance, I didn't look at him once. Yes, I had been obsessive. Yes, I had been a little crazy. My possessiveness of him had gone too far. There was no point in naming a villain between us. We had both been sick, and staying together only meant endless torment. But I was tired. I wanted to live like a normal person. No more anxiety. No more groveling. I broke it off decisively. But Mason clung to the hope of reconciliation. Unable to bear it anymore, I applied for an overseas assignment at my company. Life abroad was busy but fulfilling. My skills spoke for themselves, and my quiet discipline soon earned me a promotion. I cut off contact with everyone back home except for Sophie. 10 years later, I returned to my country. Sophie threw me a welcome back party. Over drinks, we reminisced, until she suddenly brought up Mason. It was insane, she said. He caused such a scene at your wedding. After you left, he went wild looking for you for years. Later I heard he tried to kill himself but failed, and now he's in a vegetative state. She glanced at me, surprised at how calm I seemed. As for Claire, she got married but never had kids. Karma caught up with her. You're proof that good things happen to good people, Audrey. It's so nice to see you doing well. I smiled faintly and raised my glass, feeling nothing but a quiet peace. See, back then it was life or death. But now, after moving on, life simply goes on.